versus Board of Education and the Civil Rights Movement, and we're talking to Dr. Revis Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell, as we promised before we had our ended our second segment, that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about that critical period between 1954 and the 1960s, with the beginning of the so-called Civil Rights Movement, this period of massive resistance and etc. Talk about some of the historical developments in that particular period.
I certainly want to set the stage, but in a conversation with my son Roman, who's 12 years old, who's a student, Roman reminded me that we needed to point out about who Brown was. We referred to Brown. Linda Brown. And he reminded me that Linda Brown had to walk about 2 miles to school every day, and her father became upset because in Topeka, Kansas, where they lived, they walked past a school that white students could attend. And it's very poignant. Linda Brown is still out on the circuit. She's still lecturing. But she pointed out that she asked her father one day, why do we have to go past these schools? Why come I can't attend? And Mr. Brown, in statements and written comments, he pointed out how bad he felt to tell his daughter why she couldn't attend. That he didn't believe she was inferior in any way, but the system. So that led Brown, who was a product of this post-period, post-war, to take resistance, We'd see that in America. You know, the irony is that many of those young people who, 54 through 60, who are educated, become the college students who, when the Civil Rights Movement comes about. When you look at Birmingham later, and you look at Arkansas, you look at Little Rock, these people have been exposed to the media. They've read of Brown. I think what sometimes missed when looking at African-American culture is there have been discussions in churches and in clubs and in schools about what Brown meant. And suddenly it empowered the people. It empowered the people to follow nonviolent, passive resistance, but to take a proactive stance. You know, what the Civil Rights Movement really did with the use of the media, it made the world and it made America look at how it was treating its African-American counterparts. How dogs would be sicked upon people, how people would be forced to walk and couldn't ride buses. And all these people were asking for was a God-given right to the American dream.
Dr. Mitchell, let me interrupt you because in 1960, when you talked about that incident of the dogs and etc., being a student at AM&N College in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, a freshman student, never having taken a pen in hand before to write any kind of statement before in my life. I wrote a little piece of information to the Arkansas Democrat. And the only thing it said was fine example that we're showing to the rest of the world and sign my name. And they published that. And it was from that inspiration alone that I became convinced that I had to tell the story of the African Americans.
You see, I think that, and that has been replicated in so many instances. Here in Nashville, Tennessee, you know, so much civil rights activities would take place here with students working to desegregate the lunch counters. But Nashville's population, Nashvillians, responded to a quiet demand, not a violent demand, but a quiet demand. But just what you said, why are you treating me this way? How come I can come in a store and purchase commodities, purchase a suit, but I can't sit down and have a cola? You know, what have I done? What is my endemic inferiority? Or really said to America, why are you afraid to enter into things with me equally? From the Civil Rights Movement, we have fast progression to Brown, even the present day. And so many institutions which African Americans hold dear, it appears, are under attack. We never demanded the creation of historically black colleges. Historically black colleges were set up in the period after the Civil War for African Americans. But from those colleges, we learned the lessons of the Civil Rights Movement. We learned the lessons of Brown. And many times now it seems that there's a forceful effort in America to dismantle those colleges, those institutions, everywhere from Jackson State in Mississippi to what some see as an attack on Tennessee State here in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, why suddenly is it wrong to have a place for people who have been denied to understand